Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be going into episode 13 in my aviation news roundup, and as it is April of 2024, we'll look at some of the interesting events and news that happened back in March. Quite a bit to go over, actually. There's some really interesting announcements, especially for air shows and stuff like that, as we're getting closer to air show season. But as always, before we jump into that, my name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. And as well, just before we jump into the meat of this video, I want to thank all of you who are out there watching this. If you do enjoy what you're watching and you haven't yet, down below, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. The like and the subscribe, well, the like will help push this video to other people with similar interests, and subscribing will allow you to stay up to date with my new content, and the alert bell will let you know when I release a new content, which tends to be about once a week or so. And on the flip note, if you don't like what you're watching, by all means, down below, leave me a comment. Let me know why. You know, I'm always open to change, and if I have to adjust, whatever, I'll do that. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm doing what I do because I love doing it, so it is what it is. So let's jump right into this, and the very first thing I want to talk about, even though it technically happened on April 1st and not in March, but April 1st of this year, 2024, was the 100th anniversary of the Royal Canadian Air Force. Now, the Canadian Air Force existed prior to 24, but 1924, April 1st of 1924 was when they got the Royal Charter from the King and was able to be called the Royal Canadian Air Force. And so it's still considered the anniversary of the founding of the RCAF, even though it's changed its names a few times and had a bit of a career. We're here, it's been 100 years. It's awesome. The RCAF had some events at Borden, which is the home of the RCAF. Its very first base was at Borden, and they had a couple of events there to inaugurate that 100th anniversary, to celebrate the 100th anniversary. And throughout the rest of this year, there will be more. There's going to be a large presence at air shows. They've got the fully painted CF-18 that's coming out. They're very committed to celebrating this anniversary at the larger air shows across Canada and some of the smaller air shows. Quite a few different organizations are coming up to help promote and take part and celebrate this 100th anniversary. We've got foreign jet teams coming to Canada as part of this anniversary. You've seen some pictures around Canada of different locations, especially on April 1st, lighting up blue in honor of the RCAF 100th anniversary. It's pretty cool. I'm very excited to go ahead and keep celebrating this throughout the year. Unfortunately, while we're seeing the 100th anniversary of the RCAF, in some other news, the RCAF has recently retired all of the CT-155 Hawk jet trainers. There's been a lot of questions as to why this decision was made and why they did this, considering the jet's only 25 some years old. The Hornet's 40, the CP-140's 40, the Tudor that the Snowbirds fly is nearly 60. The Hawk seemed, even in the US, you know, they're flying T-38s that are 50, 60 years old. The Gosh Hawks that are being flown by the US Navy are second, in some cases, third generation Hawks. They're 25 years old, and there's no plan to replace those anytime soon. So the retiring of the Hawks in Canada is a bit of an odd situation, and I think there's more to it than just the aircraft are old. This is just me talking from my gut. There's no official sanctioning of any of what I'm about to say, but the Hawks and the Harvards were always part of a contracted training program. The aircraft weren't completely owned by the RCAF. They were owned by a third-party contractor, and I believe recently it was Bombardier that owned it, and they were contracted to keep the aircraft airworthy and provide those aircraft to the RCAF for training. And I believe it was only a 25-year contract, so that contract was coming due. And my guess is the renewing of that contract, or even the extending of that contract, was way more money than the RCAF was willing to spend. And there's a few things coming down the pipeline. We need a new trainer. With the F-35 being rolled out, the Hawk just isn't good enough to teach pilots what they need to know to fly that aircraft. The large screens, the touch screens, the vision in the helmet, that is all stuff that you can't learn flying in a Hawk. And some of the you know, the what's what I'm thinking of, the not the techniques, but the, well, yeah, the techniques. Some of the syllabus you need to learn, you can't learn on that Hawk. So there's a future next-gen training program coming out, and it's also going to be contracted, and they're going to have a new trainer that's going to have more performance and more technology and more ability. That's rolling out in the early, I believe it's the early 2030s, about the time that the F-35 becomes fully operational. So my guess is that new contract is in the works. It's planning to go in live when those F-35s go live, extending the Hawks at whatever the contracted rate might be, which most likely is way too much for what the military is willing to spend. It's probably cheaper to retire the Hawks now at the end of their contract, send our pilots overseas. I believe they're going to, it's Italy, the US, and I believe Finland is where we're sending our pilots to do their advanced jet training, the lead-in training to move on to the F-18. That's happening by those contracts. It's probably cheaper to send our pilots to that location and do the training there and bring them home to fly the fighters than it is to extend the contract for the next 5 to 6 years before the next gen trainer program comes into effect. So that's my guess is why they were retired. It wasn't about age or anything. It probably came right down to dollars and cents, and it just didn't make fiscal sense to extend the contract any longer than we had it. That's my take. I'm sure more info will come out in the near future as to why that decision was made. But either way, they were stood down on March 8th. So the training unit in Moose Jaw had stopped flying them a while ago, and only 419 Squadron out in Cold Lake flew them as part of the aggressor program or the training program for the CF-18s. So they've also been now retired, and the aircraft, as far as I know, they're all sitting in Collingwood. Some of them are going to be trucked into Borden to be used as maintenance trainers for the next generation of AMEs and battle repair technicians, and I believe a few of them are going to go to a few museums. I suspect some are going to go to like the National Aviation Museum, and probably one in the RCAF Museum in Trenton, and I suspect, you know, a couple out west or something. So you'll probably see a few of them end up in a couple of museums, but I think most of them, they still have some useful life as trainers, and they're probably going to be used as such in Borden for a while. Yeah, and so 419 has been stood down as part of that program, and they will be reactivated in the early 2030s when that new trainer comes online, and we have a new sort of aggressor trainer to help train with you know, techniques and whatnot for the next generation fighter pilot. So that's happening, which is a little annoying in some respects, and there's a lot of people who don't like it, but it is what it is. It's progress. It's going to take some time and some hurt to get there, but I think we're better off in the other end. As well, I've mentioned it in previous video, the CC-150 Polaris 15003, the one that was painted in the heritage scheme, the white with the lightning bolt. It was involved in the accident in Guam where the brakes bled off and the aircraft rolled back and hit the tail of a French A400. And the A350 was, A350? CC-150, sorry. The CC-150 was completely written off. And was scrapped on site, and pictures have been released of the U.S. Air Force actually disassembling that aircraft on site in Guam. I'll put some pictures up here of what it looked like. Again, it's a pretty sad end to that aircraft. It was always cool to see that fly, and I'm just hoping we'll get another one of the new 330s painted up in that scheme when it does get here. And also just interesting, it's not really, everything so far has been RCAF related, but I've read the de Havilland Canada, which bought the rights to the shorts Sherpa a number of years ago, is actually looking to put the aircraft back into production. They've got the Twin Otter back in production, obviously. They also have the rights to the CL-215, 415 line, and is building a new CL-515, and they've had a number of sales of those, but they're looking to put the Sherpa back into production. It does fill a niche for some military and special operations and stuff like that. So they want to do it, new engines and new cockpits and all that kind of stuff. So that's very exciting. Hopefully they can get some sales and some drum up some support for that, because that'll be cool to see back in, especially with things like, you know, jump schools and U.S. military special operations and stuff like that. There's really a market for that kind of aircraft. So hopefully they can get it back up and running and get that production going, and good for de Havilland Canada. Every time they have a successful design like that and can go back in production and make some money, it means there's a chance of something else being brought back. You know, maybe we see the Beaver come back, or the Otter come back, or, you know, a whole new design. There was talk of the Chipmunk being built as a kit plane. All of that stuff hinges on the company being in a very cash positive location, and hopefully this is the kind of stuff that gets them there. So Anyways, that kind of wraps up the headline section of this video. So moving on to events and air shows. I think the biggest one in the air show world in Canada the past month is specifically with Baggoville. Now, I'm not going to Baggoville. It's already a full summer for me, and getting to Baggoville is actually a bit of a pain. It's quite a long drive for me. So it's not easy to get to, but I wish I could, because the RAF Typhoon demo is going to be at Baggoville. It's the only location it's flying in North America. I was hoping with the RCAF 100 they would do a few more shows. However, I think there was a bit of horse trading going on, because the CF-18 demo is going to Riyadh. I believe it's Riyadh. I believe it's going, yeah, it's Riyadh. It's going to, in England. It's doing a show there. So I believe they just did the trade. Hey, if we send the CF-18, can you send the Typhoon? I think there's a bit of horse trading going on there. But anyways, would be nice if it got to other shows. It's not looking likely. It looks like Baggoville is almost positively the only stop for the North American tour of, if you can call it a tour, for the RAF Typhoon. But for those people going to Baggoville, or if you're on the fence of going or not, that might be the deal breaker for a lot of people. That's really cool. I really wish I had the time and schedule to actually go to that show, but I just don't have that kind of freedom in my life right now. So that's that. Thunder over Michigan has had quite a bit of stuff announced recently. As usual, I've got my computer screen going here, so I'm just using it for some notes. So apologies for not looking directly at you guys. But they had a few announcements. So Mad Max at Little Witch, the P-51, they do a demo formation team. They've changed their team name now, and I can't remember what it's called, but they have their own demo team now, and that's Lou Horschel and let's see if I remember the other guy's name. Ariel something. Lou Horschel and... Anyways, the two of them, they were in Gatineau a few years back, but they're going to be at Thunder over Michigan doing their two-ship P-51 aerobatic demo. They're always cool to see. Lou Horschel's also bringing his Corsair up and be doing a demo in the Corsair. Kevin Coleman, Red Bull Aerobatics with I believe it's an extra 300 or 350. He's going to be there doing his show, as well as the West Coast Super Hornet Rhino demo. Never seen the West. I don't think I've ever seen a Super Hornet demo. I know I've just seen Super Hornets do some flybys at London, and I know I've seen the old US Navy TAC demo with the Hornet. I don't think I've seen the Super Hornet demo before. And if I have, I don't remember. So that's exciting. That'll be there. And they've also announced that the Legacy flight, which is the Navy's version of the Heritage flight, will be there. So most likely it will be either the CAF Corsair or Lou Horschel's Corsair, or possibly both, who knows, but a formation with the Super Hornet and a Corsair, possibly two Corsairs, you know, again, time will tell. But we'll have the Heritage flight with the F-16 and the P-51, and the Legacy flight with a Super Hornet and a Corsair. So that's cool. I've never seen a Legacy flight, so that's going to be a really cool addition. So that's kind of rounds up what we've seen so far from Thunder over Michigan. And then London has announced that the U.S. Army Golden Knights parachute team will be there. And it's been a few years since I've seen them as well. I think I saw them last at Michigan many years ago. Yeah, the last time I saw them, they were still flying the Fokker Friendship. Now they've moved on to a Dash 8-300. So that'll be really cool to see. And they put on a decent show. It's not as good as the Skyhawks. I find the Skyhawks is one of the best parachute teams I've seen. And I've seen a number of parachute teams, but the Golden Knights are pretty good. And it's always exciting to see the parachutes and stuff like that. So that is interesting there. I feel like there was something else announced. Oh, you know what? When was that? No. I'll talk about that next video. London, Quinty started to release some of their schedule, but it technically happened in April, so we'll talk about that in the next video. I'm a little late getting this video out, so I'm bleeding into my announcement. So anyways, Quinty has been announcing stuff, so stay tuned for more on that. Hopefully, the show is only 3 months away, so by the next month, I'll have even more to announce. So that's that. Moving on to some of the incidences. Again, there's been some interesting ones, some surprising ones that I wasn't expecting. So first of all, that Russian A320 that was in the field, I don't know if I mentioned this last month. There was talk of them flying it out. It has officially been confirmed it's being scrapped on site. Again, I can't remember if I mentioned that, but if I didn't, it is not flying out of the field. It is being scrapped on site. And if I didn't put it up before, here's a picture of it being scrapped. I talked about in September of 2023, so a few months ago now, there was a United 767 that had a hard landing and it actually crinkled the top of the fuselage. I'll put a picture up here of that damage. And at the time, everybody suspected that aircraft would be written off. I mean, it's a 767, they're old. you know, new aircraft in service and all that kind of stuff. But they repaired it. Here's the picture of it flying after the repair is made. You can see how much like the top fuselage got replaced, but they repaired it and put it back into service. So that was very surprising on that. But hey, you know, you never know what's going to happen out there. So that's that. It actually returned to service March 27th. So that didn't take very long. So you're talking, what, September, October, November, December, January, February, 7 and a bit months to fully repair that. So for that kind of repair, you know, I'll give it to them. Now, interestingly, this I also have a follow-up for. Since I wrote my script, there's been a change. So on the same day that 767 entered service, on March 27th, an Emirates A380 had done a flight to Moscow, and it was hit by a water truck. Again, I'll put this picture up, but basically the water truck drove underneath the rear fuselage, just behind the wing body fairing, and did a really big dent on that fuselage. It looks like they tore through the skin pretty significantly, and the picture looked really bad. And at the time, again, internet talk was a lot of it's pretty much pooched. You know, you can't. Good luck fixing that aircraft in Russia with all the sanctions in place. And I mean, that aircraft looks horrible. What are you going to do with that aircraft, right? It's a lot of damage. Well, apparently, Emirates ferried the aircraft back to Dubai. I don't know what kind of repairs were done on site, what kind of hot fix was done to get that thing airworthy, but they flew it from Moscow to Dubai, and they're going to fully repair the aircraft in Dubai. And that blows me away that when you see that kind of damage, that they're able to fly that at any sense with only a minimal amount of repairs. But I mean, with, like I said, the sanctions in Russia, you don't want to leave that aircraft in Russia. You want to get it out and get it fixed. So I don't know. I'm a little on the fence. I'd be interesting to see what kind of repairs went into getting that airworthy, because apparently, based off of tracking data, that aircraft was as high as 41,000 feet for the return. So it must not have done any damage to the pressure vessel, and it was empty. But I mean, that took a bit of guts to say, yeah, let's fly this home and fix it there. So anyways, we'll keep you guys updated on that when that gets back in the air, but not what I expected, not what a lot of people expected that aircraft to do after that kind of damage. Yeah, it is what it is. So, I mean, again, it's a bit of a shorter video. That's kind of all I had. Again, there's all kinds of accidents. I'm not going to go through all of them. There's no need for me to go through all of them. There's other channels that go through every plane crash. I'm just talking about some of the interesting and ones that I saw and that I thought others would be interested in hearing about. So I'm going to wrap this video up here. So as always, thank you everybody for watching. If you have anything you'd like to say down below, comments, good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter. Leave your comment, hit me up on Facebook, all that fun stuff. More than happy to engage when I can. So I'm going to wrap it up here. So thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you all next time.